As a standard logia, the Mera Mera no Mi, or Flame Flame Fruit, would be an excellent devil fruit to have. Unfortunately, like the other three initial entries in this series, many began to see it as weak after Oda mentioned that it was inferior to the Magu Magu no Mi. I genuinely don't really understand how these two abilities are similar enough to really claim one as general superiority over the other, so let's see what the wiki has to say on it. The Mera Mera no Mi is inferior to the Magu Magu no Mi in terms of elemental hierarchy. Magma is considerably hotter than fire, allowing it to overwhelm the Mera Mera no Mi's powers. So I guess that it's a temperature thing? Okay, let's just assume that magma is actually hotter than fire as we compare the two. Since we're on the point of temperature, let's start with that. Typical lava has a range of 700 to 1400 degrees Celsius, but it really depends on the composition. For instance, carbonatite magmas could be as cool as 490 degrees Celsius. Basically, this lower point is just the melting point of the rock, and you could theoretically go as high as the boiling point, which is much higher than that listed for natural lava for the upper limit. And yes, for those pedants out there, magma could be hotter than lava due to the pressure underground, but until we see Akainu fighting Pika, he's out of the ground and is lava, alright? So yes, it has a pretty great range, but it's kind of like the range of the Tun fruit. So far into the extreme that it might as well not have a range at all. You can go from burn your face off hot to technically hotter burn your face off hot. They both accomplish the same thing pretty much just as quickly. If you want to punch a hole through someone, great, but your glowy blobby gloop isn't going to help you with much else. Since we're just assuming fire is less hot for now, I'm just going to talk about what you can do with this lesser heat. I'll be going into what fire is and how hot it can get later, but for now, what can you do with fire? You could cook food with much better precision and without needing to worry about potential toxic compounds leaching into it. You could also provide a stable source of light that won't damage people's eyes if you don't want it to, and won't continuously crust over, blocking the light. If you want to propel yourself or specially designed vehicles, you can make a rocket-propelled anything with fire powers. What are you going to do with the blah blah fruit? Now let's get a little fancier. As I'm sure many of you know, if you control the source, you can do some interesting things with fire. Just make your arm or finger an oxyacetylene torch and you can make nice clean welds or cut through steel with great precision. Besides heat, the other major aspect to consider is mobility. Do I really need to discuss the mobility of magma? It's pretty viscous. Meanwhile, fire is plasma. Plasma can move very easily and quickly. In a fight between the two substances, even assuming magma were hotter to the point of somehow nullifying the intangibility of logias, I don't think that's really a thing by the way, then the fire user could zip around just using hit and run tactics. Oh no, he's going to hit you with his logia nullifying magma as if that were somehow any more notable than just using haki? Then move out of the way! It's probably even easier to pull an Aokiji with the Mera Mera no Mi than it is with the Hiei no Mi. If both characters have comparable haki, I really can't see the Mera Mera no Mi losing a one-on-one fight against the Magu Magu no Mi. But it's worse than that. Let's get a little more pedantic. What are we calling fire? Is that just any plasma, so anything from cold inductively coupled plasmas to the sun, or even hotter stars? Maybe we want to limit it to specifically be the result of combustion? Well, technically combustion is a high temperature exothermic redox chemical reaction between a fuel and an oxidant. That gets rid of the cold and hot extreme examples that I mentioned before, but thanks to the terminology being dumb, this is where most people get the idea that it needs oxygen. I'm not sure which is named after which, but oxygen is not required for chemical oxidation. Oxidation is just the process of removing electrons, contrary to reduction, where electrons are gained. The name coming from reducing the charge because electrons are negatively charged, so adding electrons is lowering the charge. Oxygen is a good oxidizer, but it's not the only oxidizer, or even the best. So we can get hotter than that oxyacetylene torch example. For pure elements, the more electronegative it is, the better an oxidizer it is. And the greater the difference between the electronegativities, the more energy will be released during combustion. As you can see, gold is weird. But back to the point, oxygen is pretty great. Second best on this bad boy. But fluorine is even better. And the fun doesn't end there. If you get creative, you can make compounds that are even better oxidizers. For instance, chlorine trifluoride is sometimes used in the semiconductor industry to clean reaction chambers because it's convenient and we always get to play with the fun stuff. It's generally considered too dangerous for other fields like aerospace and the military. On the rocket science note though, in Ignition, an informal history of liquid rocket propellants, John D. Clark described it as being hypergolic with such things as cloth, wood, and test engineers. That's a great line, by the way. Not to mention asbestos, sand, and water. So yeah, it can burn things that are typically used to stop things from burning, or at least things that you otherwise don't think of as fuel. You know, like the 30 centimeters of solid concrete and 90 centimeters of gravel beneath that in a certain industrial spill. You just kind of need to wait until it's done doing its thing because there's not really much you can do to stop it. My point there is that fire doesn't really have a maximum temperature as far as I know. It just depends on what you're reacting, and I can't really imagine a liquid at standard pressure being able to pass that. It doesn't necessarily have that temperature limit you get from magma because it's already beyond a gas depending on who you ask. So then, if there were a limit, what would it be? What would cause it? Annihilation? The reason magma probably still seems hotter is its thermal capacity and ability to transfer that heat. If you're cooking something in the oven, everything in that oven will eventually be the same temperature. One of the first things to get up to temperature will be the air. Do you need to wear a spacesuit to take something out because the air will burn you? No, you just need to protect your hands from the solid stuff. But the air is just as hot, if not hotter, but it doesn't burn you for a couple of reasons. First of all, a given volume of it doesn't store as much thermal energy per degree. You can think of it like lithium-ion batteries versus a lead-acid battery. You could have it so that they have similar voltages, but the lithium-ion battery is going to be able to store much more energy per volume. Your hand is able to absorb the thermal energy from the air in immediate contact with you without making much of a difference to the temperature of your skin. On top of that, air is a terrible thermal conductor. Your natural water cooling will easily keep your hand cool as long as you aren't completely in the oven. That's actually how convection ovens and air fryers cook faster, and is how fans cool you faster when the air is colder than you. The moving air just speeds up the heat transfer as the air that's equalized with your temperature is moved out of the way with the new air ready to transfer. But say you touch the metal rack in the oven. Not only is there far more thermal energy in that area immediately ready to transfer, but the heat will move through the metal much more quickly. So how is this relevant to fire though? Plasma is really just ionized gas. Keep the fire moving, and it will burn the target nicely. The faster it moves, the more you'll be able to transfer that energy, and the quicker it will burn. Like I said, I really don't see the two fruits even being in the same category, but if I had to pick one over the other, I would almost certainly pick the Mera Mera no Mi over the Magu Magu no Mi, even faster than I would pick the Kito fruit over the Tun fruit. I was going to go into exactly what plasma is and where the heat and light come from, but this video is probably already more than long enough. If enough people want me to, though, I'll gladly make a companion video, link that over there as a card and down in the description, potentially even down in the comments. So just let me know. I could do that.